Good evening. The situation in Sahrani remains volatile, with private military companies like Dear PMC playing a key role. We now go live to our correspondent, Mark Davidson, reporting from the region.
Mr. Dervaux, thank you for joining me. The world is watching Sahrani with growing concern. Can you explain why a private military company like Dear PMC is operating on this island at all?
The situation in Sahrani has been deteriorating for years. The indigenous population in the south has long suffered from systemic oppression, economically, politically, and culturally. With no action from the international community, Dear PMC was commissioned by a coalition of humanitarian and strategic stakeholders to stabilize the region before it spiraled into full-blown civil conflict.
You mentioned a coalition of humanitarian and strategic stakeholders, but critics say this is just corporate speak for private interest. Who is actually funding this operation?
Transparency is important. Our mission is backed by a multinational consortium, including Aegis Technologies, EU, Helix International, Japan, Nord Strategic Holdings, Scandinavia, and Arcos Defense Group, USA. These companies are not investing in war. They're investing in long-term regional stability, infrastructure, and the re-establishment of secure trade and humanitarian routes.
Still, numerous civilian sites have been damaged. Schools, communications hubs, even an IDAPE camp. How do you justify that?
Regrettably, some of those sites were being used to coordinate intelligence operations and provide logistical support to local separatist factions. The IDAP camp in question was no longer a neutral actor. We responded with precision to disrupt those networks while minimizing collateral damage. In war, clear lines are a luxury we often don't have.
Some have called your tactics intimidating. Is that an accepted strategy for a private force?
What you call intimidation, we call containment. Our operations follow strict internal rules of engagement. We're not here to conquer. We're here to contain chaos and create the conditions for sustainable peace.
Let's talk about the so-called Ultima component. A leaked memo suggests it's a classified weapon. Care to clarify?
I won't comment on speculative leaks. That said, if such a component existed, it would be entirely defensive in nature. In light of recent EuDef offensives, it was preemptively relocated west, far from populated areas. That's not an act of aggression, it's a measure of responsibility.
Do you see the EuDef as an occupying force?
No, we see them as well-meaning, but misinformed. Many of their troops don't know the region, the culture, or the historical fractures here. Their tactics are slow and rigid, ours are localized, flexible, and in some cases even supported by the people.
There are reports of Sahrani natives voluntarily joining your ranks. Is that true?
Yes. Because we listen. Because we act where others make promises. We've recruited and trained locals who see Dear not as invaders, but as the first force that's given them schools, medical aid, and a real voice.
Let's talk losses. Dear suffered significant casualties near Maspete and Bagango. Does this weaken your position?
Every loss is personal, but it also shows we're not some faceless machine. Our people bleed for this cause. We're not fighting against Sahrani. We're fighting for a new Sahrani, one that isn't chained to failed colonial frameworks.
How long does Dear plan to remain on the island?
Until local self-governance is viable, transparent, and protected. We're not here to plant a flag. We're here to build a foundation, so that when we leave, Sahrani doesn't fall back into silence and fear.
One final question. If you could send a message to the international community right now, what would it be?
Open your eyes to the grey zones of war. Not everyone who fights is the villain. Not every plea for help is pure. Peace isn't born of hesitation. It comes from difficult, often brutal decisions. And we're willing to make them so others don't have to.
Thank you, Mark, and our thanks to Mr. Dervaux for his insights. It's important to highlight that Dear PMC has expressed willingness to engage in peace talks and cooperate with all parties committed to ending the conflict. However, many remain critical of EuDef's ongoing military operations. Questions persist as to why EuDef insists on responding with force rather than exploring diplomatic alternatives. Their heavy-handed tactics and apparent lack of understanding of the local context risk further alienating the population and prolonging instability. As the conflict continues, the international community must ask itself, is a military solution really the path to lasting peace in Sahrani? Accountability and a genuine commitment to dialogue are essential if this crisis is to be resolved. We will keep monitoring developments and bring you updates as they unfold.